What's going on, everybody? This is Todd Brown. We're going to get started in just about 30 seconds. If you don't have something to write with, a pad, pen, even something to drink, you definitely want to grab those. This is going to be pretty intense. We're going to go at lightning pace. This is, of course, the webinar intensification process. And what you're going to see is a very specific subsequence that takes place in between registration and the actual event to jack your attendance through the roof. I'm going to be walking you through specific examples. I'm going to be walking you step by step through the whole process, and it's really not that long. It's really not that lengthy, but there are a lot of nuances that are going on here. And so you're going to want to pay close attention to all of the little nuances, and I'm going to point them out. Even the smallest little detail of some of the communications, I'm going to point out to you. Again, as everybody knows, this is not I hate to use the expression newbie, but this is not a newbie friendly process, because as you're going to see, this not only leverages some powerful psychology, which is cool for, newer marketers, but it involves a multi-step, multi-channel sequence. And by the end of this training today, I guarantee that you will never look at getting people to attend your webinars the same way ever again. You will be ruined from this point on. And so I'm super excited to be sharing this with you. I never thought that I would actually do any kind of training and share this, but I just found that there was tremendous need and a tremendous lack in this area from lots of marketers. And so I'm super pumped to share the intensification process with you. There is a one-sheet PDF that kind of summarizes the steps for you of what I'm going to cover. So this is kind of just a quick reference guide to what it is that I'm going to be covering for you, that you can download anytime you want, just so that you can follow along. Now, before I go any further, I want to be transparent about this, and I think that I was pretty clear in the material leading up to this training that I did not create this process. This was a process that was really fleshed out while at Strategic Profits. And so at Strategic Profits, as many of you know, we worked side by side with Clayton Makepeace. And Clayton is one of the highest paid living copywriters today. He's got one client that pays him over $1 million in royalties per year, Weiss Financial, and he's created some amazing controls. Well, Clayton was running this special, this unique type of promotion many years ago for Weiss Financial that was just cranking. And of course, at Strategic Profits, because we had, insider access to that process before Clayton kind of shared it with the world, we were able to reverse engineer with Clayton's permission and assistance exactly what he was doing to create these unbelievable events. And so that's when the evergreen webinar was born. What you're looking at right here is the process map that we utilized for the initial evergreen webinar, the first what we called at Strategic Profits, the first EEDM event. Later, after this, we really fleshed out and developed what it is that you're going to see today, this intensification process. So the early version of the EEDM process did not contain a fully fleshed out intensification process. It did contain an intensification process, but not to the extent or magnitude that you're going to see today. Now, in addition to this little one-page PDF, I have another gift for you that I'm going to give you at the end of the training, and that is the original report. I think this is like 50 pages or something like that, we gave out as part of the Founders Club that I created with Rich at Strategic Profits. And this was the first time that the idea of evergreen webinars, evergreen event-driven marketing was really documented in the IM community. And this is what spawned, as you know today, a whole bunch of evergreen webinars. I'm going to give this to you at the end of the training, not because there's some pitch at the end, because there's nothing for sale today, there's nothing being pitched, but just because I want your full attention, and I don't want you downloading this and looking at it right now. If you've never seen this report, this is one of the most detailed reports on all of the elements of an EEDM or evergreen event-based experience that you will find out there. This one report, I think originally this report was, I don't remember if it was sold for 97 or 67, something like that, but it is incredible. And it details all of pretty much what you see here. And it goes in depth into this entire process. And so today, I'm going to give this to you. Like I said, I'll give you a link at the end of our training today. Today, what we're going to be talking about is that intensification process, and I'm going to share with you that fully fleshed out version of that process. Now, before we jump in and get rocking and rolling with really step number 1 of the intensification process, there's a couple of key points that I really want to drive home to you, that I want you to get. First and foremost, and this is something that I share with marketing funnel automation coaching clients and mentor to a million clients all the time. This is at the foundation of everything that we do as it relates to building out and optimizing and testing and developing marketing funnels. And that is, don't ever underestimate the task at hand, right? First and foremost, as it applies to your marketing, it's don't ever underestimate the task at hand in getting somebody to whip out their wallet and buy a product. It never ceases to amaze me how many marketers far underestimate that task, right? They think that they're going to put up a sales page or a VSL or do a webinar, and off the cuff, they're going to sell like crazy. And they just far underestimate what it takes to move somebody from prospect to buyer in terms of, trust, credibility, authority, and everything else that goes into developing, conversions. Well, the same applies to your webinars, but specifically in this area, in this context, what it is that I'm talking about is don't ever underestimate the task at hand when it comes to getting people on the webinar, getting registrants to actually attend. It's one thing to send somebody to a registration page, whether it be via cold traffic or from your house list via an email, and get them to register. That takes all of 5 seconds for them to fill out a web form, submit their information. It's a whole other thing for them to set aside time in their schedule and get in front of the computer and actually get onto your webinar at a specific time and on a specific day. And so you could never, ever underestimate that task at hand. And remember that the next time you are creating your webinar funnel, your webinar sequences, including the sequence that takes place in between registration and the event. Most marketers, unfortunately, what they do when it comes to their webinars and it comes to attendance is all they're really sending out is a reminder sequence, right? So a prospect, for the typical marketer, a prospect goes to their registration page. Hopefully, each and every one of you are using your own registration pages, not a go-to webinar page if you're doing a live webinar, so that you have control over the emails and so that you can plug these individuals into an intensification process. But what most marketers do is they simply plug people into a reminder sequence where all they're doing is reminding individuals of the event time and date. And they're not recognizing the fact that in between registration and the actual event, people cool off, meaning that they get excited, they get, they're on fire, so to speak, for the content. They're excited about what it is that they stand to learn when they went to your registration page and they were quote unquote sold on the webinar. But then from the time that they registered to the time of the actual event, and the longer that time frame is, the more they cool off. This is why the farther out your webinar is from your registration, if you did a webinar that was a week out, your attendance rate is going to be pretty poor because people cool off. And so the intensification process is a lot more than just reminding people of the time and day. And we're going to cover the key points before we actually jump into what the intensification process is. Now, again, don't ever underestimate the task at hand. Your goal with every funnel, and really, let me say this, your goal with everything that you do as it relates to your marketing is to maximize results. And so you've got to learn to go the distance. I can't tell you how many clients I interact with, or new clients, or just marketers in general that I interact with that really are all about just getting something out into the marketplace. And they're not going the distance. They're cutting corners. They're skipping elements. They're skipping components. They're skipping pieces, or they're just really haphazardly putting stuff together. They're haphazardly putting together a thank you page. They're doing the least amount of work that they possibly can in order just to make it happen. Well, what we're all about, and the reason why my clients get the results that they do and make the money that they do, is that they go the distance, right? And so you've got to recognize that, yeah, what I'm going to show you today requires effort. It requires work. It's going to require you to do things differently than the average marketer does. But the fact is, if you want average results, then do what the average does. If you want extraordinary results, you cannot do what the average does, right? You can't do what the ordinary marketers do and expect to get extraordinary results. And so this is about doing what is necessary to maximize your results. Now, the intensification process, and I learned this early on some years ago from, I think it was something that Dan Kennedy once said. And at the foundation of the intensification process, and frankly, if you got nothing else out of this training today, if you got nothing else out of this, but you truly got what I'm about to say on this bullet right here, and your actions in your intensification process or your follow-up process after registrations changed based on this, you would see an impact in attendance. And it's this idea of this principle of arriving differently. And what I mean by that is that your follow-up process itself, the intensification process, when I say follow-up, I mean follow-up from the time that they register to the event. And get this, please. Your follow-up process itself, forget what you say. I'm going to get into all the messaging and all the different steps and the psychology and all of that in just a bit, but the actual experience of the intensification process itself should demonstrate the importance of the webinar, of the event, and why it's different from anything and everything else that prospects have experienced. In other words, when you use this intensification process, not only do the different steps accomplish specific strategic and tactical goals, all driving towards a greater attendance rate, but the experience of getting that intensification process and going through that intensification process clearly demonstrates to prospects that this is something different. This isn't the way the ordinary webinars are promoted. This isn't what the ordinary marketers do. This is something different. This is something important, and this is something that I need to pay attention to. And so the process itself demonstrates the value of your webinar, and then built on top of that are all the psychological elements within the steps that I'm going to share with you. Now, there are three main objectives, and then there are a bunch of sub-objectives, but there are three main objectives of the intensification process. The first one is, and this is in no particular order, the first one is to create a bond and feeling of familiarity and trust with you. So by the time prospects get on your webinar, whether it's evergreen or live, and let me just take a step back and say that certain elements of what I'm going to share with you, excuse me, today will apply to mainly live webinars. Some will mainly apply to evergreen, and a majority will apply to both. But the first thing is, like I said, that when they get on your webinar, when they get on your event, they need to have a bond with you and a feeling of familiarity and a trust level, right? So that you are going in with positioning already in place, with this feeling of familiarity, right? A level of rapport, if you will, and a level of trust because of what you've been able to demonstrate through your intensification process. Remember that, typical sales 101, people buy from people that they like and trust. People buy from people that they like and trust. People tend not to buy from people that they do not like or do not trust. And so we want to create that relationship before the webinar and then further it even more during the webinar. The next main objective is that, of course, we want to create excitement over the possibility of results from the webinar content, not your product. What you're going to see throughout this entire intensification process is that this is a process designed to create excitement about the webinar, not the product. The webinar is what creates excitement about the product, right? It's what ultimately leads to the presentation of your product or service features, the 3 different benefits per feature, the offer, and so on. But the intensification process is all about selling, quote unquote, selling prospects on the value of the content that they're going to get on the webinar and the results that that content will give them. Kind of like very similar to the way a properly designed squeeze page, opt-in page, is done, right? An opt-in page, a squeeze page is designed to sell the lead magnet, to sell the visitor on the thing that you're giving away. It's not designed to sell them on your product or your service, or it's not designed to set them up for the sale of your product or service. It's designed to sell prospects on the value and benefits of the lead magnet. And so this intensification process is designed to get them excited over the possibility of results, the possibility of transformation from the content that you're going to share on the main training webinar. And finally, the third main objective is to create buy-in on the webinar content. And the big idea, the concept behind the webinar content, right? So to get them to buy into what it is that you're going to be presenting on the webinar, so that they go in. It's pre-framing, and you're going to see how to do this in just a little bit. It's pre-framing the value of the content that they're going to get on the webinar, getting them excited over the possibility of the results that they're going to reap from that content, and have them going into that webinar with this bond with you and a feeling of familiarity and trust. And so with that said, I want to show you an example of a thank you page video. Now, in all fairness, this is not part of the intensification process. So part of the intensification process picks up after the thank you page. It picks up after the thank you page. But I want to show you an example from Dave Van Hoos of a great thank you page video. And I want you to watch this little video. I think it's a minute or a minute and a half, something like that, because I want you to see how he remotivates them, resells them on what it is that they're going to get, re-excites them on the content. Now you're going to see that this is done on the thank you page, and so hopefully these individuals are still, of course, excited since they just registered. We're going to take this and we're going to expand this over the course of the entire intensification process. So check this out. Let me see if I could turn this up a little bit.
Hey friends, it's Dave Van Hoos. I want to congratulate you for taking action. So I just kind of remind you of what we're going to cover on the webinar. So I've been talking to you about systems in your business. I've been talking to you about leverage in your business. And I've been talking to you about technology and automation. And I've been talking to you about sales innovation. That's right. And so on this webinar, I'm going to be breaking down and teaching you the 5 steps that you need to follow to create your automated webinar cash machine. I'm going to be breaking down and teaching you exactly what to do step by step by step, so that you will be able to implement this into your business, so you can start increasing your ROI or increasing your cash flow in your business. So one of the things I'm going to be teaching and showing you on this webinar is I'm going to be teaching you of how do you write a presentation that converts. That's right. So a lot of you are asking, well, how do I write a presentation that converts? So I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how to do that. And I'm also going to be teaching and showing you on this call of what technology should you use. You know, what technology is the best so that you can automate your automated webinar cash machine. And I'm also going to be teaching you and showing you, because a lot of you may ask me, is how do I drive traffic? Now that I got it set up, how do I get leads and how do I get prospects to come to this automated webinar cash machine? So I'm going to be sharing you, breaking down exactly how to get traffic to your automated webinar cash machine. So I'm so excited to be able to teach you and show you exactly what to do. One of the biggest things that I see that separates winners from losers is that winners show up and take action. And so if you want to take your business to the next level and you want me to share with you and teach you exactly what to do, make sure you carved out the time and make sure you have a pen and paper ready, because I'm going to be breaking down exactly what to do in your business. So you know what you need to do, and I will see you on the webinar.
And there you go. What I really wanted you to pay attention to, I mean, the whole video is very cool because of, again, how he remotivates prospects. But one of the key things that I really wanted you to pay attention to, and I hope you got this, was the last portion where he talks about being an action taker, right? And he talks about that action takers show up. And this is a great example of a video on a thank you page that isn't just about reminding them of the webinar, right? So often I see marketers that have a thank you page after registration, and all it does is just say, this is your webinar, you know, congratulations, you registered, this is your webinar, this is the time, this is the date, this is your link, and that's it. This is an example of how Dave on the thank you page is really beginning the intensification process. And Dave Van Hoos and the folks at Speaking Empire, they are, I mean, Dave is phenomenal as it relates to webinars and teaching webinars and platform selling and platform pitching in general. Strategic Profits did some events with him and whatnot. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of those elements that you just saw in that one thank you video, and we're going to span it out over the course of this intensification process, and we are going to arrive differently. And so check this out. Let's go to step number one. So step number one in the intensification process is what we call an intensification voice broadcast. And this is a voice broadcast message that is sent immediately. It's automated and it's sent immediately. The vendor that we use, just as a side note, for all voice broadcasts and for anything we do with SMS is Call Loop, CALLLOOP.com. It makes, integrating with virtually any email autoresponder CRM system seamless. Chris Brisson and his team over there have done a phenomenal job making it incredibly simple. And so this intensification voice broadcast can be used both with an evergreen webinar as well as a live webinar. Now, the thing that I want you to understand first and foremost, we talked about arriving differently, is that using a voice broadcast leverages a rarely used personal touch point. Right off the bat, you're going to touch prospects in a way that they're not accustomed to being touched, not physically, of course, that they have not been accustomed to being touched. And so right off the bat, you are separating yourself from competitors, from the average, by leveraging this underutilized touch points. Now I'm going to share with you the script, a little script, and all the nuances in this little 60-second script that we use. And there are 5 factors. This is the script right here. And I'm gonna walk you through this little script because this is a 60-second script, and there are 5 key factors that are being leveraged, marketing and psychological factors that are being leveraged in this little 60-second or less script. You're going to see commitment and consistency. You're going to see exclusivity. You're going to see scarcity, reciprocity, and curiosity. And so the script is, hey, this is Todd Brown. Just wanted to personally thank you for registering for the upcoming XYZ webinar. I've gone ahead and I've set aside, and I've set one of the 21 VIP spots aside for you to ensure your seat before they're all taken. I've also gone ahead and sent you an email with all of your private event access details, as well as access to a special video series I've prepared for you called Compelling Title. That's all for now. Talk soon. That's the entire script. Now like I said, there are these 5 factors at play, and I want you to understand the nuances here of this script. So we've got this commitment and consistency over here in that, right? I wanted to personally thank you for registering for the upcoming webinar. This is the name of your webinar. And I've gone ahead and set one of the VIP spots aside for you. So when you remind prospects of a prior step, and then you obligate them for the next step by showing them that you've taken a special action because of that prior step, you increase the likelihood of them taking that next step. So we've got this commitment and consistency at play. We have exclusivity because we set one of this limited number of VIP spots aside for you, right? So there are a limited number and you're referring to them as VIP spots. We've got scarcity because we're alluding to the fact that that these spots are going to be taken, right? We don't have to come out and explicitly say these spots are going to be taken. This is implied. This is an implicit message over here that shows them that this thing is going to sell out, that this thing is going to fill up, that in essence you are lucky that you decided to register right now. And so we've gone ahead and we've set aside one of those limited VIP spots for you. And so we're leveraging scarcity over here. And then we're leveraging reciprocity because we're saying that, right? So I've also gone ahead and I've sent you an email with all your private event access details. Also, you'll notice over here, right, that we've got private event, more exclusivity. You got one of these number of seats. These are VIP spots. And you've gone ahead and just in the verbiage over here that you've actually set it aside for them, right? And so that's all more exclusivity over here. But then, and then we say, right, the scarcity comes in, like I said, to ensure that your seat before they're all taken. Reciprocity is because we say over here that I sent you your access details as well as access to a special video series I've prepared for you called this. So we're over delivering on what was expected. We are exceeding their expectations because we're giving more. And as you're going to see, this is a value-driven sequence that we're going to put them in. It's a value-driven sequence that also happens to set them up for attendance. So it's a value-driven sequence that sets them up for attendance. And so this is the very first step. Like I said, it goes out immediately within minutes after they've registered. Now the next step is in the intensification process is your confirmation email, right? This is just a straight up confirmation email. This email goes out immediately. It gives confirmation of registration. It gives event details. It references a special handout, which will be found on the first video in this intensification process sequence, which I'm going to show you all this. It sells them on the value of the intensification process video number 1, and you'll see how this is done in just a second with bullets of content and benefit. And then it includes a link to intensification process video 1. So if you downloaded the blueprint, the one-page blueprint, you can see where this step is in the entire intensification process. If you got on late and you didn't have a chance, when you get the replay, you'll be able to download, like I said earlier, the slides, the one-page blueprint report. And so this is a simple example, not a whole lot of craziness going on in this email, some nuances that I'm going to point out, but this is what your typical confirmation email does. And so, right, so congratulations on getting one of the whatever number of seats. Now remember, this is conveying exclusivity, right? Getting one of just 21 seats or 100 seats or whatever it may be. Then we've got over here are the event details. Then over here in this next sentence, we say you'll be sent your private access link in a separate email as soon as the event fills up. Right? And so this is what's called in the world of NLP, this is a presupposition because this is a way for you to communicate to prospects that the event is going to fill up, that this is important, that there's buzz, that, right? This is a way to communicate social proof without having to do it explicitly. When it comes to marketing and when it comes to copy, when you can do things, when you can communicate things implicitly, either through demonstration or just simply implied, it has a lot more power than when you say it or do it explicitly. Because when you do it implicitly, it allows the prospect to come to their own conclusion, right? And so this is something that I talk about frequently in using this in copy and emails and on webinars and in marketing funnels. This, the use of presuppositions, whether they be in the form of statements and or questions. Because again, this presupposes that the event is actually going to fill up without you having to come out and say, hey, this thing is going to fill up, which in most markets, prospects look at that as just, as pure hype. And in certain markets, they don't even believe it, right? This allows us to convey that within the context of when they're going to get their private access link. Then we immediately go into selling them, so to speak, on this video series that we've put together. And so we say, in the meantime, I put together a special little 3-part video series for you called, and here's where you've got a compelling name for your video series. Now, I want to point out this word little very quickly, because this word was, of course, used strategically, because what we want to convey to prospects, and you'll see how I do it in just a couple of sentences again, that these are easily and quickly consumable by them, that these are quick little digestible nuggets. And so we use words like little and tiny and whatnot. And so, and then I say over here, you want to get started on this little training, again, little training right away, because it gives you, and here's where you would put in your benefit, because it gives you, boom, video 1 is just 13 minutes long. So again, little, short, brief, and on it you'll hear, and this is where you've got, we usually use 4 to 6 bullets on here. Another reason, just so that you're aware of why we use frequently the word little or tiny with this intensification process video sequence, is because we want to convey to prospects that this is not even scratching the surface, right? That this is a little teaser, a little taste, just a tiny bit of content. We don't want to call it a special 3-part video series or video training for you, because then they might associate those videos with our other paid trainings. And so we want to convey that this is just a taste. And so over here is where we go into this special handout, which I'm going to explain on the next slide. And so I say, as well, when you go to watch, now you'll notice over here this wording, right? This is another, remember I said over here, let me see here, let me do this. So remember I said over here, this is a presupposition. This presupposes that the event will be filled up. Well, this is another example of a presupposition. As well, when you go watch video 1, this presupposes that they are going to go watch video 1. You'll find a private action guide, and this, depending on your webinar, you can change this name to whatever you want. I don't recommend that you use the word handout. I just use that in here for training purposes. And so you'll find a private action guide I want you to download and save for the webinar. Now, a couple of other nuances in here. So this presupposition, and then we've got reiterating that this is exclusive over here. And over here, we are telling them what to do. And part of establishing authority, right? Part of how you establish authority is in having prospects take action based on a command. And so over here, we're giving them a command. So we say, we'll be using it on the webinar together as I walk you through blah, blah, blah. And this is, more benefits, your unique process, however you would articulate it. This is also a lot of subtleties going on in here. First of all, we use the word we will, like as in we're in this together, right? As I walk you through. This is very different from saying to somebody, something like, you'll want this when I do the webinar on Thursday, or you'll want this for the webinar. It's very different when we say we'll be using it on the webinar together as I walk you through, boom, your proprietary system. Then we add in this verbiage, and this verbiage over here is added for one reason and one reason only, and that's to reinforce the exclusivity. Please do not share this action guide with anyone else. It contains my proprietary method for XYZ. And, you might phrase this a little bit differently, but it contains my proprietary method for XYZ. And it's just for the folks like you that are action takers and were able to grab one of the available seats for the webinar. So, right, it contains my proprietary method for XYZ. This is selling them on the handout, right? And it's just for folks like you, putting them into action takers. This taps into, again, commitment and consistency. It reinforces the commitment and consistency. And it reinforces commitment and consistency because when you refer to them as an action taker, as somebody who does things, as somebody who gets things done, as somebody who makes things happen, however it is that you phrase it for your niche, for your market, there are positive feelings that are elicited and generated, right? Because you're associating them with a positive segment of the market. And so they're more likely to act consistently with that positive label because they don't want to lose that positive label. And so this is just reinforces that commitment and consistency. And so folks like you that are action takers and were able to grab one of the available seats, more scarcity, were able to grab one of the seats and one of the available seats, all tapping into scarcity. And so to watch video 1 and grab your action guide, go here. PS, and this is just a simple type of curiosity factor that we incorporate frequently, either into the PS section. This is kind of a formula that we typically repeat. It just says, PS, pay close attention to what you'll see in video 1 at the 2-minute and 36-second mark. Specificity. It's possibly the most important content shared in your little video training series. Go here to watch video 1 now. And so this is specificity. This is telling them what to do, authority, and this is all curiosity over here in this in that section right there. And so that is, that is your confirmation email that goes out, like I said, immediately. Now I want to skip ahead to a step where I want to talk about the intensification PDF handout. Now you're going to see in just a little bit, I'm going to show you and exactly how this works. They get access to the handout on the page for video 1. And I'm going to show you an example of that page in just a bit. But so in order to get the handout, they actually have to go to the video 1 page. So they go to the video 1 page, they're able to get the handout, and they are able to engage in the first video in the intensification process. Now, what is the purpose of this handout? Because I see, some marketers, savvy marketers use handouts, and handouts are a great engagement tool for your webinars. But the right way to use the handout is to craft a simple handout, and these handouts are usually even easier to create, is to craft a handout that creates curiosity and perception of benefit with the content to come in the webinar, right? So the whole goal, the whole purpose of the handout is to create curiosity, more curiosity about the content that they're going to get on the webinar, and it conveys to them a perception of benefit that they're going to reap from the content that's going to be covered on the webinar. That's our purpose. We do this, we tap into this, especially this curiosity factor, as well by creating what we call, psychological discord over having an incomplete task. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. Now, some of the best handouts are things like fill in the blank. For example, here are 2 pages from from Chris Brisson for one of the webinars that he did from Call Loop. And so I think his was about 12 pages. Actually, I'm going to give you a link in a second so you can download this and see exactly how he did it. But there was something like 12 pages, and what you can see is that there are blanks and diagrams. And so by the end of the webinar, they'll have these things filled in, right? They'll have them filled in. This is just pure fill in the blank. And oftentimes what we like to do when you're using a multi-page handout that's fill in the blank is have a couple of the fill in the blanks where a portion of it is filled. You know what I'm saying? So it really taps into an incomplete task. And this is a whole other psychological factor, right? It basically gives them some of these that have one element filled in, or could have two elements filled in. It taps into this need for people to want completion, right? Because when there's one or two of these things filled in, prospects begin to think about, well, I wonder what this is, and I wonder what this is. Versus when they're all just blank, they might have absolutely no idea. They still might be compelled by something like this because it's pure benefit driven, right? What is the right way to maximize your webinar? But they're starting from scratch. And so if we can start them off with one, and sometimes put them in odd places like this, they get engaged with the handout when they first open it. So what happens is, what you'll find is that prospects will go and they'll download the handout, and they'll take a peek at it. And again, the whole goal of everything that we do through the intensification process is to sell them on attending. And so this is another reason to attend. Excuse me. And so when they begin to go through and look at it and just scan it very quickly and see some of these things filled in, again, they engage with the handout that much more and begin to think about, well, I wonder what this is. I wonder what this is. Can I figure it out? And the fact that it's incomplete and they want to fill it in creates this psychological discord that creates greater desire to fill this in. And this kind of taps into, old school direct response marketers leverage this all the time. For example, when years ago, not even years ago, still when you join like a coin of the month club or a watch of the month club or, various clubs, with your initial order, what they'll do, let's say with the coin of the month club, is they'll send you a case, a holder for the coins, and it has 12 open spots in that holder. Right? And so you put your first coin in there and your second coin in there and then maybe your third coin. And now you look at that, and we've got human beings have this need for completion. It causes, like I said, this psychological discord when something is not complete. And so it makes individuals more likely to want to get the rest of the coins. And of course, when you're at month 12, they'll you're going to get another box so that you can, so that the whole process begins. So never at any point do you feel a sense of completion. And so we're tapping into that with this handout. Then there are incomplete diagrams, and these are all the same process. This is all the same concept. It does the same exact thing, whether it's an incomplete diagram, a blank, or a partially filled in mind map, or partially completed flow chart. It's all doing the same thing, right? This is simply the tactic. This is the strategy. Right? And so it doesn't matter whether you're using a fill in the blank, an incomplete diagram, partial flow chart. These are just tactics. This is the strategy. This example over here was a diagram that was used by Perry Marshall as part of his handout for one of his webinars. And he told them, basically that once this diagram was filled in, that they'd be able to write headlines for all of their ads and for all their marketing, right? And so this was part of his handout. And so that is what we want to have created as part of the intensification PDF handout. Now here's the thing also, and you can, like I said, you can see You can download Chris's an example of Chris's handout right there, at that URL. The thing that I want you to understand is that this doesn't have to be crazy fancy, right? Many of these we've created simply in Word or Pages, because it's less about the graphical elements, even though the graphical elements do play a role in positioning and brand quality of experience. At the end of the day, it's all about the fulfillment of this strategy. It's all about creating this curiosity. How are we creating curiosity? With questions and statements like this, right? And these are all curiosity and benefit driven. Over here, this is implying that when you have this filled in, that you're going to maximize your webinar. So this is all about benefit. And then, like I said, the lack of completion on these things is where that whole psychological discord and that need to complete the task comes into play. And so that's the intensification PDF handout. Now I want to talk, before we kind of go back to a step that I skipped, I want to now talk about how you deliver the intensification videos, the actual delivery style of the way you deliver the videos. There's a number of different ways that you can deliver your videos in your intensification process, but this is the way that I recommend you do it. I recommend that you use a launch style delivery platform. This is an example, and this is an early example, again, from the guys at Speaking Empire, from Dave Van Hoos. But what you're seeing here looks like it is part of a launch, right? You would think that the typical IM launch, in this case, these guys were using 4 videos, giving away a tremendous amount of content, and they had some blueprints that they gave away. But the thing that I want you to pay attention to is the same factor that is at play with launches, where it's the anticipation of coming content, right? And so, look, let's take a step back for 1 second, and I want you to recognize this. Right? You're going to be able to see clearly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, why, when you use this intensification process, and frankly, even if you tweak it slightly and leave out 1 or 2 of the steps, by the end of this training, there's going to be no doubt in your mind that you will have far greater attendance rates to your webinars. Because look at the process that we're bringing through. Look at what it is that we're exposing individuals to, not just the experience of the intensification process, but as you're going to learn in just a little bit, the messages that get delivered on these little videos. It's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable. The reality is that most marketers just are not willing to go the distance. They're not willing to do what it is that they need to do to really maximize their results, like we talked about earlier. And so you want to use a launch style. Now, very quickly, the videos are typically 8 to 12 minutes. Does that mean it can't be less than 8 or that it can't be more than 12? No. Obviously not. I'm going to explain to you what each video is, because there are specific videos in the sequence. And so I'm going to explain to you exactly what those are. But this is typically where we find the average length of intensification process videos are. They are, again, about 8 to 12 minutes. And this delivery style, it's designed to create anticipation for coming videos in the intensification process. If you are using this as part of an evergreen webinar, well, then you have comments on for social proof. Now, let me just say one quick thing about comments and other tactics like comments for social proof. What most marketers don't understand is that there's both positive and negative social proof. There's no such thing as negative social proof. Most marketers only think in the context of positive social proof. When you mention social proof, they think positive, right? That I'm going to prove that this is great, that people love this, that there's buzz, that there's being talked about, and so on. But the reality is that there is also negative social proof, and a lack of positive social proof actually causes negative social proof. So if you have a page that has 0 comments on it and you're sending people there, that acts as negative social proof. If you have a Facebook like button and that Facebook like button has 2 likes on it, that acts as negative social proof. And so early on in my companies, I didn't leverage, nor do I recommend you leverage, those tactical social proof elements like a like button or comments if you don't have a big enough list, if you don't have a big enough prospect base to generate a significant amount of comments or likes, because it will do the reverse for you. People will go there, they'll see no comments, and they immediately think to themselves, well, nothing's going on here. People aren't coming here. People aren't interested in this. There's no action here. And so if you can't have positive social proof, get rid of it. On this type of style page, of course, the upcoming videos in the intensification process are locked, but prospects do have the ability to watch prior videos. What I mean by that is that, so when they go to the page for video 1, it'll show video 2 locked and video 3 locked, but when they go to the video 2 page, then video 1 will be unlocked and video 2 will be unlocked. Video 3 will be locked. And if you're fairly new and you don't know how to do something like this, this can very easily be done with something like Optimize Press, some simple plugins, and you can even pay a webmaster. There's ways to really hack this if you really wanted to MacGyver it, even with a static page. What you want on each page, and again, this is an early version of this page, but what you want on the page, on each of the pages, on each of the video pages. So let's say this is, video 1, and then you're gonna have a video 2 page, and you're gonna have a video 3 page, is you want a countdown timer on each page with the date and time of the event. So you have a countdown timer that is counting down to the event and explicitly tells them the date and time of the event. Right? And so we're using this page for multiple purposes. We're using this page to deliver the videos in the intensification process, which again, we're going to go through in just a bit. But you're also using it, of course, as a reminder, right? And with the whole countdown process. Now, if you can, this is a little bonus tip. If you have testimonials about the webinar content, not testimonials about you, not testimonials about your product or another product or something else, but testimonials about the webinar content, they would also go on this page, right? And the format of the page is insignificant. Whether you've got, images up top, whether you've got links up at the top, that's insignificant. It's totally insignificant. The point is, it's the strategy. It's the anticipation for future videos, and it's the video. It's the unlocking of videos as they go through so they can watch prior videos with the countdown timer, date, time of event, and of course, if you can leverage social proof, leverage it, and if you have testimonials for the actual webinar content, you want to leverage those. And so with that being said, now let's talk about the first intensification video. This video we call Picture Promise Partner. Picture Promise Partner. Let me take a quick drink. Okay. Picture Promise Partner. And so basically what we're doing, to give you an overview, is we're painting a picture of an opportunity that they have, the opportunity that they're going to learn about and discover, if you will, on your webinar. There's a promise of benefit that's associated with that opportunity that they're going to be able to capitalize on. And there's this conveying that you are in it with them and that they've got a trusted, respected partner leading them through this process. Now, for these videos, but more than anything, specifically video 1, on-camera video is best. Remember that, and I know, again, I'm not here to, some of you might have issues with on-camera video. You might not like the way you look. You might be very uncomfortable on video. The reality is that on-camera video in this context is the best to use because of the bonding, right? Because people have feel a greater feeling that they know you, right? They get a peek into who you are because they can see hand gestures, they can see facial expression, they can actually look into your eyes, so to speak. And so there's a much greater bond established with on-camera video compared to just screen capture video, right? And it also conveys that you're not afraid to come out from behind your computer, that you're a real person and that you're not hiding behind your computer in some far off land. Now, excuse me, in intensification video number 1, we want to start by elaborating on the big opportunity, so to speak. In other words, what is the big opportunity in the content that you are going to be presenting on the webinar? And just as a quick aside, because I see that there are some questions coming in. Definitely, if you can, hold those questions to the end. I promise you that I will get to your questions in the end. So you can type them in there, but just know that I'm not going to answer them until the end, just because it throws me off a bit. But I will get to them, I promise. So, right? Intensification video number 1 is the big opportunity, right? Is like, what is the big opportunity in what it is that you are sharing with them, right? That's really, hopefully everybody understands that really at the root of some of the most powerful marketing is the big opportunity, the opportunity to relieve pain, the opportunity to eliminate a problem, the opportunity to reap rewards, the opportunity to change their situation, right? What is the big opportunity? This is, and specifically, it's not just what I'm talking about here is not just the opportunity to alleviate their back pain or to repair their credit, or I'm not talking about the general opportunity, the general benefit of what it is that you are going to be presenting. I'm talking about the opportunity, the big opportunity with your methodology, with your process, right? So like in let's say in the financial investing world, it's not just, the big opportunity is not just to get rich with stocks or not just to, load your retirement account from investing in dividends. The big opportunity is either the specific methodology of investing in stocks, a specific way to invest in stocks, a specific process, a specific system, or it could be a set of specific stocks, right? And so the big opportunity is specific to what it is that you are going to be talking about. In essence, what you're doing is selling them on the idea of what it is that they're going to learn on the webinar, right? So if hypothetically you were giving a webinar on Facebook advertising, for example, in this context, the big opportunity, excuse me, is selling them on the opportunity right now to use your specific methodology to reap massive profits, low cost per click, and so on from Facebook. Now, how do we do that? Like, what are some of the key components of conveying that big opportunity? Well, one is, why is this different, right? So, if let's say with the financial, the stock investing example, why is this big opportunity that you're talking about right now? Why is it different? Right? Why is it different? Why is it new? Why is it something that they should be excited about it right now and compared to everything else? What is different about the big opportunity that they have right now that they're going to learn about, that they're going to learn how to take advantage of on your webinar? Why is it different? Right? And that shows them why they should pay attention. And it also addresses the fact that this is new, right? That's what people want. People want new. People don't want to buy, listen to me carefully here. People do not want to buy even things that are proven, if they are perceived to be old. They do not. They want to know what's new, right? So the idea of selling, let's say, marketers on, the 50-year-old foundational principles of direct response marketing, they don't want that. Even though those principles are effective, still utilized today, you can't position something, a course like that, by selling it as 50-year-old foundational components of wildly profitable direct response. They want to know what's new. Granted, you could provide those things, you can teach them those things in a training, but that's not the way that you can position it in your marketing. People want to know what's different, what's new. Why should I pay attention to this? As well, and this is crucial, and I want you to get this, because this little subtle shift for some of you, because we've got a lot of big players, a lot of heavy hitters on this webinar. Some of you, this one little technique that I'm about to share with you can radically change things. This one tip alone can be worth thousands of dollars to you. And that is, you want to convey to them what's going on with this big opportunity today. And this is what I call present tense benefiting. Present tense benefiting. What I mean by that is that you don't want to convey to them that this is I'll give you two examples and you can see the subtle shift in this, right? So I could say how I generated $150 how I generated $150,000 in 1 month using Facebook advertising, right? Let's just say that. How I generated $150,000 in 1 month using Facebook advertising. That's past tense, right? Present tense is how I'm generating $150,000 a month with Facebook advertising. Even though it seems subtle, it's a huge difference. Why? Because, and this goes back to what I talked about earlier on at the start, right? That you can never underestimate the task at hand. That subtly, what the past tense says is, or allows prospects to think is, well, maybe this isn't working now. Or maybe that worked for him, but it's not working right now. This is especially important for those of you that are marketing in arenas, in marketplaces that are changing constantly, right? If you're operating in a marketplace that's evolving constantly, man, you've got to stick to present tense benefiting, right? And not how I made $150,000 or how I generated $150,000, but how I'm generating. It's not, how these 10 marketers banked $3,000 a day from ClickBank. It's how these marketers are banking $3,000 a day from ClickBank. And this, brings into play something that I've talked about over the last couple of days via email, which I believe that everybody on here saw or should have seen this. And that's this idea of this hyperbolic discount, right? Hyperbolic discount factor. Ironically, this is something that my daughter in 7th grade is doing her science project on. She's actually putting the concept of the hyperbolic discount to the test. And the hyperbolic discount factor is this principle that says that people are more motivated by a quicker reward than they are a later reward, even if that later reward is bigger. And so the idea is, and the numbers are insignificant for us, but the idea is that if you took somebody and you said to them that you could work for 2 hours, and at the end of the 2 hours, you'll get paid $200 right away, or you could wait 3 months and then you'll get paid $2,000. The reality is that the majority of people would take the immediate $200. And of course, the dollar amount plays a role, as does the time factor. In other words, the further away the reward is, the more people discount the reward. In other words, the less valuable it is. So if we said $200, you do 2 hours of work today, and you'll get $200, or do the work today, the 2 hours of work, and then in 3 months get 2,000. Well, if we started to bring that out and we said 2004 months, 2005 months, 2006 months, and the farther out you go, the more people will choose the immediate reward, even though it's less, and in many cases it's significantly less. So what does this mean for you with your webinar and your benefits and your big promise? Well, it's simple, and this is incredibly powerful here, so get this. What this means for you is that you want to choose the soonest reward to spell out for them. So not the biggest reward per se, or the biggest outcome, but the soonest reward. And what I mean by that is that let's say you were teaching marketers how to, I don't know, let's say you were teaching SEO and you were teaching how to get rankings. Right? Well, you have the ability to talk about that, in 90 short days from now, you'll have, a dozen top 10 rankings or a dozen number 1 rankings or whatever. I don't really even know the SEO lingo. But right, you'll have a dozen number 1 rankings. You'll be getting a ton of organic traffic, right? So you have, let's say you have the ability to make that promise, or you have the ability to make a promise that says, you'll get your first number 1 ranking in 3 days, right? Or 4 days. And so if you were faced with those two promises, you want to go with the faster promise, even though it's less, and to you it might seem less exciting. What motivates people is the faster payoff, even if it is less of lower value. Right? And so that is the hyperbolic discount factor. Just remember that. Always look when you're thinking about, all right, I'm gonna make my promise and I'm gonna convey this promise of benefit, this outcome for my prospect, that what you're looking for is not necessarily the biggest outcome that you can promise. It's the soonest outcome that you can promise. Fast reward. The other thing when you're talking about the big opportunity is why right now? Meaning, why is right now such a big opportunity? Why is right now? Why is taking advantage of this big opportunity right now so important? Right? Is it that things have changed? Is it that things are changing? Is that they're going to be earliest to the market? Is that not many people know about this? What is the reason why right now is the perfect time? Because what this addresses is procrastination and delay. Right? There's got to be a reason why now. This is very easily accomplished with things like financial investing, of course, when you're talking about specific stocks, because there's a window of opportunity. And so the closer we can get with your big opportunity, your big opportunity, the closer you can become to conveying that there is truly a window of opportunity. And right now, that window is opened. It wasn't open before, and it's going to close. The more you can get closer to that, the more powerful the big opportunity is going to be. And then in this video, and you can see that this video is typically the longest of all three. The Picture Promise Partner is typically the longest of all three. It's usually closer to the 12, 13-minute mark, in some cases 15-minute mark. And some of the other videos are closer to the 8-minute, 9-minute mark. So this is where you talk about why you. Right? And hopefully in a matter of just a couple of minutes, you can sum up why you are the person that has the credibility, the experience, why you are in a position to be able to share with them how to take advantage of this big opportunity and reap the rewards from this big opportunity. Right? And then you want to end this with a quick walkthrough of the handout. And so on this video, you would say something along the lines of, now to the right of this video, you'll see a little image for your private action guide. Go ahead, download that, and open it up right now. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. Okay, now what you'll notice, and what in a perfect world, on the on-camera video, you would actually have a printout of the action guide so that it makes it more tangible. It gives it value. And what you do when you're walking them through that action guide is basically you are once again reiterating the benefits that they are going to experience with the content on the webinar. So in other words, what you are doing is you are saying, we're going to be filling this out on the webinar. And you'll notice that the first thing that I'm going to cover is the 6 factors for how to grow the most gorgeous tomatoes. The next thing that you're going to learn is boom, boom, boom. And so you're walking them through, right? You're telling them to take action, more of that authority positioning. You're making it more tangible, and you're walking them through it. Right? Especially, look, if you're walking somebody through a handout, you better believe they're gonna at a bare minimum download it and open it up, right? It increases the likelihood of them downloading and opening up that handout. And when they do, again, all of those factors kick in that I shared with you a couple of slides ago about that intensification process PDF. And then finally, the second to last thing is you want to tell them, tease them, about what's to come next in the next video, right? And this is, you'll see some similarities between any kind of video series, a product launch series, but you want to tease them about what's to come in the next video, right? So you want to leave them with an open loop of what it is that you're going to close on the next video. And then if you are doing an evergreen and you've got the comments open, ask them to go ahead and leave a comment on their biggest takeaway. It could either be their biggest takeaway or the thing that they're most excited about with this opportunity. Don't leave, if you ask for comments, don't leave this open. In other words, don't just say to them, go ahead and leave a comment below, because the reality is that most people don't know what to say. It's kind of like very similar to, and this is something that I teach MFA students, MFA clients, when you don't just ask for testimonials, because people don't know what to say, and most of the time they'll either struggle with it because they don't want to embarrass themselves by saying something they're not supposed to, or they just don't know what to do. Or they'll say something that, they'll give you a testimony that's not really valuable. And so give them direction on what it is that you want them to comment on. And so that is step 2B, the intensification process video number 1. Step 3A is the first of what we would call, it's kind of, it's really the second email. But the first email we call the confirmation email. But it's really the second email. This goes out on day 2, the very next day. Of course, it reminds them of the time, to the event. And you'll see this in an example, another example that I'm going to show you. In other words, it reminds them that, hey, there's 2 days to go until the event, or, we're down to just 1 day. It gives the event details. It sells them on the value of intensification process video 2. Bullets, content, and then it includes a link to the to video 2. So here's a simple example. Here's a format that you can use. And so we've got subject line video 2 of 3 with the name of the video. And just as a side note, naming things like I talked about earlier, naming your webinar. What I talked about earlier was naming your video series, naming your individual videos in the video series. Names are incredibly important. Changing the name of a video, changing the name of a product, changing the name of a movie, changing the name of a book has a massive, or can have a massive impact on response. In fact, let me see something. In fact, I have a book that I can I'll share with you. If I'll actually I'll have it put on the replay page for you. A book called, I think it's called The First 100 Million. And all the book is about is which book titles sold and how many they sold. And so there's examples of books that had one title and they sold a certain number of copies, and then the title was changed and they sold multiples of what they sold with the original title. Content, everything else was the same. And so you'll be able to see the impact that names have on videos, products, ebooks, you name it. And you'll actually see the changes that they made in this book. Like I said, I'll include a PDF download of it for you, since it's it's in the public domain now. But so what you'll see over here is, hey, we're just 2 days away from your live webinar with the name of the webinar. And also you'll notice little subtle things like your live webinar. I didn't say my live webinar. I didn't just say the live webinar. I said your webinar, right? The words like you, your, yours, those are some of the most powerful words that you can use in marketing, along with somebody's name. And of course the word free. But reminder below your event details, giving the date and time again. As promised, today you're getting access to video 2 of the little IP, this is the name of the video series, training. On this video, you'll hear same kind of layout from as the email that I showed you before. This is a much watched video if you're struggling with, and so in here we bring in problem, right? If you're struggling with whatever it is, if you're struggling with meeting women, if you're struggling with starting your garden, if you're struggling with website traffic, if you're struggling with with weight loss. Plus, you'll be finished watching in a quick 9 minutes. So over here, what do we have? A quick 9 minutes conveying ease of consumption, speed of consumption, and also you'll notice over here that we have a presupposition. You'll be finished watching it in a quick 9 minutes. This presupposes that they're going to watch it. And I want you to understand with these little things that this is worded specifically like this. It's not worded like plus you can watch I didn't say plus you can watch the video in just a quick 9 minutes. Right? No, it was a presupposition. Plus, you'll be finished watching it in a quick 9 minutes. To watch video 2, go here. And of course, letting them know, addressing the possible objection that, what if I didn't watch video 1, right? So the objection, well, if you didn't get the chance to watch video 1, you can do that right from the web page above. Talk soon. Bob Smith, and then very similar type of formula that we used in the prior email that I showed you. P.S. There's a reason what you'll hear on video 2 is working like crazy right now for marketers to overcome XYZ, sticking with this theme of overcoming. So pay close attention to when I talk about the blah, blah, blah method, right? To watch video 2, go here. Now check this out. Just from a pure email copywriting perspective, I want you to look at this, the first line of this PS. And I want you to get the power in what's being done in this first PS right here. PS, there's a reason what you'll hear on video 2 is working like crazy right now, right? And so what this does is, there's a couple of things at play here from NLP. And I'm no NLP master and done very little studying of NLP, but there are two things at play here. Number one, we were able to implicitly convey, if you will, right? Because you'll see it's in the context of this little blurb, that what they'll hear on video 2 is working like crazy. I didn't have to come right out and say what you'll hear on video 2 is working like crazy, because that raises doubt, right? Prospects will, oh, that's hype, or why should I believe you, or yeah, right. And so what we're able to do is make that claim within the context of this little statement over here. And really what the statement seems to be about is there's a reason what you'll hear on video 2 is working like crazy right now for marketers to overcome XYZ. So pay close attention when I talk about, whatever, the Bob Smith method of losing weight or whatever it is. Right? Like this whole little section has the appearance that it's about this reason. There's a reason that you'll hear. But really, this is put in here for two reasons. The main reason is to be able to convey that this is working like crazy. And remember, as I said before, working like crazy when? Right now. It's not that it was working like crazy. It's working like crazy right now to overcome what? The main problem that these prospects are having. Excuse me. And then over here, right, so pay close attention. This is also curiosity because, well, what is the reason? I need to go watch this video to find out. But also over here, by giving, what you're teaching, telling, in this is a little bit beyond the scope of this training, but what you're teaching or telling, it immediately differentiates what you're teaching. This isn't something that they can go and search Google on, or go to YouTube, or go buy a book on. This is your proprietary system. And so this is what I call, we use this to prevent a Google slap trigger, like prevent prospects from being able to go, oh, so he's teaching me about, Facebook ads, or he's teaching me about CPV. Oh, cool. Let me just go to Google and see if I can get free information, or let me just go to YouTube and see if I can get free information. And so we name it something that they can't go anywhere else and search on. But that is email. That is the email that drives people to video number 2. And video number 2 in the intensification process is what we call the big impact. This is what's called the big impact. And this is where you convey the big promise of the big opportunity. So what is the big promise of the opportunity that you shared with them in video 2? So if the big opportunity was right now was leveraging, whatever, I don't know, let's just say for argument's sake, just to keep things simple, leveraging custom audiences in Facebook advertising, right? Well, and on the prior video, you talked about, why now and why it's such a big opportunity and what marketers are experiencing, right? Like what's going on right now with custom audiences. Well, in this video, now we start to flesh out that opportunity in that what is the big promise of result or impact for the prospect if they use your methodology for leveraging custom audiences. Right? And so that's the foundation of this video. And what you want to do is in this video, you want to share one killer content piece. Now, keep in mind, again, these videos are averaging about 8 to 12 minutes. And this video and the third video are typically on the lower side, 8, 9, 10 minutes. So when I say share one killer piece of content, that doesn't mean you flesh the whole thing out. It means you take one of the 3 to 5 points that you're going to be sharing during your webinar, and you take one of the best of those 3 to 5 points that you're going to be sharing on the webinar, and you share a piece of that point on this during this intensification video, right? So that you are establishing, you're proving the quality of your knowledge as it relates to being able to take advantage of this opportunity and deliver on the promise. Right? So you're taking out of the 3 to 5 points that you are making on your webinar, you're taking one of the juiciest, sexiest, one of the killer points, and now you're taking a portion of what it is that you are going to share, and you share it in here. And I say incomplete because the way to deliver this is not only that it's incomplete, but you reference the fact that, now I'm going to walk you through the complete 10 steps or the complete process for implementing XYZ. But for right now, here's what I want you to understand, right? I'm going to share with you the full steps on the webinar, but for right now, I want you to understand ABC. So it allows us to give away a great piece of juicy content to establish your credibility, your authority, continue to build their trust, but it's incomplete, and in order for them to get the complete picture, of course, they need to get on the webinar. You want to demonstrate how that content, that killer piece of content, how it's going to eliminate their pain or problem or issue that it is that they are dealing with. Right? You want to be able to convey to them that the content that you're going to share is going to eliminate their pain, their issue. And you want to show that. You also want to contrast, really, and this is kind of all these 2 points can be are really kind of can be delivered almost simultaneously. You want to contrast what it is that they stand to gain from this opportunity with what they stand to lose, right? So you're showing them what it is that they stand to gain and what it is that they stand to lose. Now, when you do that, here, this is very important. This is a subtlety, but this is very important. When you talk about what it is that they stand to gain, you talk about them. You talk to the prospect, right? Like, this is what this is what you're going to gain from this content. When you talk about what they stand to lose, you talk about other prospects, right? You talk about other marketers that weren't savvy enough to get in, or that haven't registered, or that won't be on the webinar, or that will miss out on the webinar. So what you're doing is you're attaching the losing out on these benefits to the people that don't attend. And you are attaching the benefits, what they stand to gain, to the webinar content, to what they will reap when they attend the webinar. And then, and that's the gist, that's the bulk of this video. And then you tease them again about what's to come in the next video. This is, where we open up another loop of what they're going to get in the next video. And then if you're doing an evergreen and you're using comments based on what I shared earlier, you ask them to leave a comment on their biggest takeaway, right? Again, do not leave this open. Then step number 4 is very similar to step number 3. And so in other words, it's the same thing. The only difference is that this email goes out on day 3. Same thing. It reminds them of the time, gives them event details. This time it sells them on the value of intensification process video 3. And it does it same way, bullets of content and benefits, and then includes a link to the intensification process 3rd video. Now, so you understand, so you can see this here. So let's see. So they signed up, right? Let's say they registered for the event, and they immediately got an email sending them to video 1 with the PDF right over here. So in essence, this is day 0. This is the very first day, if you will, that they registered, right? And so then the next day there is video 2. This is really in essence 1 day later, and then the next day after that is when we go to video 3. So I want you to see that this happens in a short time frame. We're not expanding this out over a week. This is like a 48-hour process that you've just seen. And then what you're going to see is the next day is the event, right? Which you'll see in just a bit. This video is called The Future Pace. And those of you that have been around the internet marketing game for any significant length of time, you know that future pacing is where you paint a picture of the benefits, of the outcome, of what life will be like for the prospect after they utilize what it is that they're going to learn, that they're going to get on the webinar, right? And so the objective is to show prospects the possible transformation results that they stand to gain from attending the event. This is where you paint that picture of what they can expect to experience with the content, right? And we're showing your prospects that it's really possible to accomplish their desires, right? And that's without getting into that element, that's a powerful persuasion point, right? That, that if you show them that they can, that it really is possible to achieve their desires with the opportunity that you are giving them, that you're going to be putting out in front of them and teaching them how to take advantage of on the webinar, man, they become indebted to you, right? Like there's, you tap into a whole different level of psychology here. And this whole idea of showing them the possible transformation results from attending, it's certainly, it's great if you can leverage any kind of case study or testimonial demonstrating results from the webinar content, right? And so this is an example. This is kind of a little bit of a subtle shift here, but so let's say you've done this webinar before, and let's say on this webinar you sold a product, and somebody went through the product, somebody went on the webinar, went through the webinar, bought the product, and then became a success story for you. Well, you can reference back and you can share the fact that, Barbara Smith attended the webinar, just last week, or, attended the last webinar, and here's what life is like for her right now, right? And so in here is where we are using a case study but the way we're telling the case study in this context is we're reinforcing the value of attending the webinar. right? We're not using the case study to sell people on your product. We're not talking about the product. We haven't even mentioned your product, your offer, nothing. We're using the case study or testimonial to convey the benefit, the beneficial result, the outcome, the transformation that somebody experienced who attended the webinar. Granted, the fact that after the webinar they bought the product, and from the product they were able to go on, they still attended the webinar, and they still, after the webinar, they still went on to achieve XYZ and experience an ABC transformation, right? And so when you're doing that, you also want to overcome objections. And what I mean by that is, like, so it's not objections to your product. You know, when you're doing a webinar and you go to make an offer, right? You have to deal with objections. Objections as it relates to value, objections as it relates to time, as it relates to need. All of those things are related to your product offer. What I'm talking about here are objections and concerns that individuals could have as it relates to the opportunity that you're talking about. So let's just go back to the example of the Facebook ads. So, excuse me. So if we were talking about, you know, Facebook advertising, and you just told a story about Barbara Smith who attended the webinar and then went on, and now she's, you know, generating, $1,000 a day from a first product, we're able to overcome objections that might be there in the context of that case study. So, for example, an objection that somebody could have is, but I can't use this because I won't have the money, or I don't have the money, or I don't have a lot of capital, or I'm not technical, or I'm not on Facebook, or I'm too old. And so, excuse me. So the possible objections, you want to overcome those objections, the objections to the content, the objections to the ideas that you're putting forth. These are not objections to your product. They're potential objections and concerns as it relates to the content, the big opportunity that you are putting forward. Here is where we want to, because this is the third video, we want to give them a taste of what's to come in the webinar. And this is basically very similar to when you held up the handout in video 1. This is like where you say, you know, so you tell a case study, and inside that case study you're overcoming objections, and you're doing it implicitly, meaning you're not saying like, hey, and you don't need to be technical to do this. No, that's explicitly overcoming an objection. We implicitly overcome objections. Let's say the objection was, I'm not technical. Well, if we told a case study, and the case study was, one of the case studies that we told was, look, Barbara barely knew how to send out email. And then all of a sudden, 48 hours later, she's getting, she got her first 10 visitors from Facebook and generated 1 sale, right? That implies that you don't need to be technical, right? Rather than having to come out and say it explicitly. Remember, if you can convey these things implicitly, they're more powerful, because the prospect then comes to the conclusion on their own, rather than you trying to force feed the conclusion on them. And so we give them a taste of what's to come. So in other words, the case study will say, so, blah, 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 blah. And on tomorrow's webinar, or, depending on how you structure this in the intensification process laid out, it's the next day. In tomorrow's webinar, I'm going to share with you how to have a similar experience. In fact, what I'm going to share with you is, boom, a taste of what's to come, and that's where you elaborate on the benefits, right? So a taste of what's to come is, I'm going to share with you the XYZ method, benefit. What is the benefit of the XYZ? I'm going to share with you this tip, benefit of that tip. This benefit of that. It's very similar to what you did during video 1 when you held up the handout, right? And so what you're doing in essence is you're showing them the power, the impact, the outcome of what it is that you're going to give them, and then you are you tell them how to access the webinar, and then you sign off by saying that you'll see them on the webinar tomorrow. Now, step number 5 is the day of the webinar. This is the next day, and this is the morning reminder. This is the morning reminder. And this email is pretty straightforward. It includes a link to the webinar, includes benefits of the content, includes teaser bullets of what they're going to learn on the webinar, reiterates scarcity, reinforces need to attend live. You're going to see something cool. It taps into guilt. And here is a template that we typically begin from. And so this says, today, this is just, this is supposed to be the subject line. Then, hey, Todd, today is the big day, right? So we're conveying in this first sentence that, man, like, all right, it's here. Something's happening. This is big. We're not just saying, so today is your webinar, right? No, like, we're conveying in the way we're communicating with them that we've been building up to something exciting, something big, something monumental, something valuable, right? Something that you've been paying attention to and you need to pay attention to. And well, today is the big day. At 3 p.m. Eastern time is your webinar name. And as you know, by the end of your training today, right? So now we're conveying that these benefits are tied to today's training. By the end of the training, right? By the end of the training, you will benefit. And let me show you a cool example. This was from one of the emails at Strategic Profits for a webinar. It says, during my free business success training, I'll show you strategies and ideas no one is talking about in the internet marketing world that you can use this week. Not just that you can use, but specificity and soon too. These are all benefits. Simplify your online business, decrease the daily work you do, put more cash in the bank, live a life of personal freedom, and much more. When we're done, you'll have a completely new perspective on what it takes to have a successful online business, which is much easier than what you're doing now and much more profitable, right? Benefits right here. And then over here, we give a taste of the content, right? So these are the benefits, right? Here's just some of what you're going to get. Bullet, and much more. Here are the access details with their link. And notice that we said your private access link, conveying more exclusivity. Remember that marketing is all about subtleties. It's all about nuances. It's all about the little things. One word can change everything. In fact, I talk about in the Marketing Funnel Automation Coaching Program in one of the modules, this idea that one letter can change everything. There was a thing, I think it was from Ted Nicholas, another world famous copywriter. I think it was Ted Nicholas. And he was working at one point with, I think it was TDK, the makers of cassette tapes. And they put out an ad, and the headline in the ad said, put music in your life. Put music in your life. And, excuse me, and the next run, they made a mistake, and there was an extra letter that was put in there. And it went from put music in your life to puts music in your life. P-U-T-S, puts music in your life. That one additional letter jacked up their conversions some 400%. They're not their conversions, their return on investment, their response, excuse me. Some 400% from one letter. Why? Because that letter changed that word so that now it has the appearance that the tape is doing it for you, right? Put music in your life conveys that you have to do work. Puts music in your life, the pluralization of the verb, as we call it, the pluralization of the verb conveys that it does the work for you. It does the work for you. And so one letter can change things significantly, let alone one word. But so more exclusivity. Now, because of the quantity of people registered to attend, I highly recommend you get on a few minutes early just to ensure you're able to grab your seat. So this is implied social proof because of the quantity of people registered to event, right? We didn't say how many people. We were implying that the quantity of people requires them to get on a few minutes early, right? Because of the quantity of people registered to attend. So implied social proof. Just to ensure you're able to grab your seat. This is scarcity, fear of loss over here, right? And so little stuff at play. Looking forward to seeing you on there. This is where you tap into that little bit of guilt. And at this point, we're able to leverage this. We're able to leverage this because of the fact that early on we said we've set aside a seat for you, a spot for you, and we over-delivered value, tapping into the law of reciprocity, right? Giving extra, going above and beyond with the video sequence. And so now looking forward to seeing you on there. There's this element where again, if people feel like they have a relationship with you, if people feel like they have a bond with you, if people like you and you've delivered stuff to them of value, there's this feeling of not wanting to let the expert down. So looking forward to seeing you on there. P.S. I'm not sure if there'll be a recording or replay of this webinar, so make sure you get on there with me today. I'll be waiting for you. More, again, taps into guilt, right? If you just started a relationship with somebody that now you like and trust, that's over-delivered value, gone above and beyond, all of these things elicit feelings. Looking forward to seeing you on there. I'll be waiting for you. See ya at 3 p.m., right? And so this is the email the day of in the morning. Step number 6 is reminder email number 2, and this one is 1 hour prior to the event. This is brief and to the point. It's pretty much a simple reminder. We tap into a little bit of fear of loss. If you have the ability, this is a great, and because we've tested this, provide a phone number for last minute support, and you'll see how I do this. Leverage the law of reciprocity and leverage a little bit of additional guilt. And so here we go. We've got the, this would be where the subject line goes, starting soon, the webinar name. Hey, Todd, your webinar, again, your webinar, whatever the name of it is, kicks off in just 60 minutes, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Go here a few minutes before 3 p.m. to ensure nobody else grabs your spot. More scarcity. Looking forward to seeing you on there. More of the whole leveraging law of reciprocity and guilt. And then over here, this is where we introduce the phone number for last minute support. P.S. Because we reserved your spot for you. This is also, right? See, this is another one of those, right? We went as far as to reserve your spot for you. If you have any technical issues getting on there, please buzz my office at whatever, your office number, if you're able to do that. Because what you'll find is that there are people that have issues. And so the people that go as far as to reach out to your office, and this, this is really a great way to do it with a phone number, but you can also have a support email that, somebody on hand. The people that reach out are highly interested. Right. And so they're interested enough that if they're having problems, they want to get on there. And so that is the reminder email. Now, here's a quick little tip, just like a kind of like a little secret tip. If you're doing webinars live via GoToWebinar, 15 minutes before the start of your live GoToWebinar, log back into GoToWebinar and click on edit the name of the event, and then just add to the name at the very beginning, starting : in all caps. Then you'll save it, and GoToWebinar will ask you, do you want me to resend this? Do you want me to resend this to all registrants? Click yes, because what this does is it gets you an extra reminder out from GoToWebinar to registrants with, like I said, starting in the subject line 15 minutes prior to your event. So if you're doing that via GoToWebinar, that's a great tip for you. Step number 7 is the final SMS reminder. This is where we leverage text messaging. And the reason why we leverage text messaging, for a while we were doing voice broadcast, but we found that, again, that we were leveraging voice broadcast over here, but we found that, there are occasions where people don't answer their phone and or don't immediately listen to their messages. But some 80+% of people will look at an SMS message within 15 minutes. And so let's first talk about collection points. There are 2 different points that you can test to collect your mobile phone numbers. The first option is on the registration page. This is an example from one of the webinars at Strategic Profits, where it's an option. You have the ability to, this doesn't show up normally. This defaults to unchecked. And so once you check the box that you would like an SMS alert, then this drops down and they're able to enter their country code and they're able to enter their mobile number. The second option is an option on the thank you page. And so let's say you're using something like this for your thank you page, just as an example. Well, you can collect the SMS right there on the thank you page. And so I tend to lean in favor of the thank you page to create less friction on the registration page. But you should really test both of those. You want to send it 15 minutes prior to the event. And one of the things that you want to do is in the SMS message, you want to include joinwebinar.com. This is, again, if you're using GoToWebinar, for example, joinwebinar.com, a link there, and the ID of the webinar. And so this is what a simple text message would look like. It would say, hey, Todd, or hey, Bob, whoever the person's name is, the How to Grow Gorgeous Rose Bushes webinar is starting in 15 minutes at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Access it here. Join webinar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the ID of your webinar is. And in GoToWebinar, there's a number at the very end of the link. So there'd be, if you went to the registration page, let's say in GoToWebinar, for example, there's a number at the end of that link. That's the ID. So somebody at any point could go to join webinar, enter that ID, and they'd be able to get on. And the reason why you do this is because they don't have to actually go back into their email and find the email from GoToWebinar or anything like that. They can just log right in right here with this. And so now, I mentioned earlier that the recommended provider that we use for SMS and voice broadcast is Call Loop. And so I get nothing for promoting Call Loop, but I did speak to Chris last night, ask him if there was any special deal that he could give you guys that were on here. And he said, if you go and sign up for Call Loop, if you're not using it already, and you pay as you go, so there's no monthly fee or anything like that. He said that when you go, you open up your account and you buy some credits. He said that if you tell support that you are a client of mine, that you came from me, they'll double the number of credits in there for you. So if you buy 15 credits or whatever, they'll double them for you. If you buy 50, whatever it is, they'll double them for you. Now, and so that's the final step in the intensification process. Now, let me give you a couple of elements that I recommend that you test, because these have the ability to impact results. And this is not part of the intensification process now. This is just specific to webinars. The first thing is how you actually define the event, or how you position it, how you actually name the event. And so is it a webinar or is it an online summit? Right? That was the name or the positioning that Clayton Makepeace used to use with Weiss Financial. He positioned it as an online summit. And sometimes all it takes to differentiate what you're doing from what everybody else is doing is a simple repositioning of what it is. Right? So even though it's the same thing, same technology, calling it an online summit or a video conference or a streaming webcast or a streaming seminar or a real-time webinar or an online conference, it changes perception. And in some markets, right, prospects don't know what a webinar is, but they might know what an online conference is, or they might know what an online seminar is, or a real-time seminar, or, you can use your imagination there. And so you should begin to play around with how you define the event. The next thing that you really should test is what I call a pure, unadulterated GoToWebinar style page. And so what you're looking at right here is, and this has been done for a long time. We were doing this, my gosh, a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years ago, is having webinar registration pages that look like they are from GoToWebinar, right? Because there's a lot of credibility and trust associated with GoToWebinar already, and the format of the way GoToWebinar they have their pages, you can leverage that with your own pages. This is not a screenshot from a GoToWebinar page. This is a screenshot from a page that was on Chris's, that was on the Call Loop server. and it just looks like GoToWebinar. And obviously, when somebody enters their email, their information in here, they're then put into, Chris's Infusionsoft account for all of follow-up. But frequently, we have found that the pure unadulterated GoToWebinar style page beats the slick, fancy, marketing pages. And the reason for that is that I believe that prospects, especially in markets where they've been exposed to lots of webinars before, it immediately triggers their sales filter. Immediately a red flag goes up, and they know what it is that's being done. They know that you're marketing hard, you're selling hard. There is a level of skepticism that immediately arises. Whereas this type of page, which is less intrusive, it doesn't have as the same level of that hypey feel and the same wild in your face colors, and it leverages some established credibility with that format thanks to GoToWebinar. And so we frequently see this kind of page just beat out with clients the crazy fancy pages. The other thing that we've been doing a lot lately is, and I really got to give credit where credit's due. We have a gentleman named Andy Hussong, who is our Director of Business Development for the MFA brand. He is constantly in the marketplace, and he's obviously connected with all the players out in the internet marketing community. And he brought the idea back to me to, when doing live webinars with partners, to incorporate Google Hangouts. And the way we've been incorporating Google Hangouts is 2 days before our live webinar, we do a pre-event Google Hangout to pre-sell his list on the content that we'll be sharing on the webinar. So we're pre-selling the content. We're talking about the content. We're just not elaborating on the content. I'm not elaborating the content. See, Google Hangouts are different from webinars because Google Hangouts allow people to tap into, the voyeuristic side of who we are as human beings. It gives them a peek into your office, your surroundings, your background. They get to see you in your own element, either your office or your home. They get to see your face. They get to see you right live. And so it's a lot more intimate and whatnot than a webinar with just screen sharing is. And even Google Hangout allows you to do screen sharing anyway if you wanted to do that. But so we get the list on there. So if we're doing it with a partner, the partner will mail to their list, get folks onto this Google Hangout where we're talking about the content that's going to be shared during the webinar, and we push the registrations. And so you'll see an example of this in just a second. But so we're directing them to the registration link, right? So they're on there, they're getting excited, enticed, they go and they register. Then, so that's 2 days before the webinar. Then the day before the webinar, there's a replay of the Google Hangout, the pre-event Google Hangout. Then there's the actual live webinar. Then the next day, there's a replay of the live webinar. And then the day after that, we do a post-event Q&A. And we push people to the replay, and there's the link to the offer right on the replay page. And this is like an example of the type of page that we would use for like a pre-event or post-event Google Hangout. So this is the live Google Hangout video. There's some social sharing up at the top. There's the host's topic. They can submit questions live. And over here is where you can put links. And we use a platform to do this. This is actually an amazing WordPress plugin that I love. I get nothing for this, but I love it. It was formerly called Webinar Express. It's now called Webinar Ignition, and it is awesome. Just awesome if you're doing Google Hangouts, or you want to even do one-off webinars where you're using a recording. You can do that as well. I mentioned earlier that at the end of the training today that I would give you the link to download the original EEDM report that was put out at Strategic Profits for our Founders Club over there. And so there you go. There's the link where you can download that full report. One of the best and most complete and comprehensive educations that you will get on how to do an evergreen event. A handful of years old. old, yes, but 90% of the content still has massive application today. And so there you go. What we just went through over the last 2 hours was just the intensification process. The process, the sequence that takes place in between registration and the actual event. And so with that being said, let me see if we've got any questions. So Charles Kirkland says, this is great as always. Thank you, dude. Great to have you on here. Matt asks, evergreen meaning can be sold anytime, forever, right? So evergreen just means, yeah, it is an event that is ongoing. It's not a one-time webinar like a live webinar. It's a webinar that is driven by, it's delivered via technology and via a recording, but it happens on a date, right? That's what makes it event, right? That's the difference between a webinar, an evergreen webinar, and a video sales letter, if you will, right? That a video sales letter is accessible anytime. A video is accessible anytime, but an evergreen webinar, it's an event. It is being delivered on a specific day at a specific time, right? And the reason why that's done today in the IM community is really because of what we were doing at Strategic Profits and what was detailed in this report. And like I said, this thing was sold for, 97 or 67, something like that, when it was first released. And so, so let me see here. We have a question that says, should I do webinars to sell a front-end $49 offer if my back-end has a super high converting back-end that makes me thousands? Okay, so the back end is irrelevant, right? So doesn't matter what the back end is, that shouldn't play a role in what you do to sell your front end. The right answer is if you can sell your front end from a webinar at $49 and you can break even on cold traffic, then do it. Right? Like, so if you can send traffic directly, if you can send cold traffic to a registration page, get them on a webinar, and from that webinar, sell them on a $49 product, and you're able to break even on your media buying doing that, then the answer is yes, you should be doing it. And then, you certainly, you've got the benefit of the back end for you. The other thing to consider is, certainly, there's a lot that I could ask about that, but certainly, if the back end is, there's a lot more that we can talk about that as it relates to what you can do to get more people into the front end. But if you have a great back end that's based on somebody purchasing the $49 offer, then again, yes, if you can break even by sending somebody direct to a webinar registration page, getting them on a webinar, and then selling them, the answer is yes, I would do that. Sharon asks, hey Sharon, Sharon asks, could the lead magnet platform be the videos then leading to the webinar selling the product? So could the lead magnet platform be the videos then leading to the webinar selling the product? So you certainly could do that. The answer is yes, you could do that. It would require changing things up a little bit because what you'd be doing is on your squeeze page, you'd be generating the opt-in based on the 3-part video series. And the difference is that the 3-part video series would really then be geared towards getting them to register. See, it changes the game a little bit because it would be driven to get them to register. Then there's a couple of things that you could do depending on how you did those videos. You could, of course, once they register, you could plug them into a different intensification process, or you could just design the videos so that they do both. They encourage people to register and get on, right? And so even if they register in the middle of the videos, they're still going to come back and watch the second video because you're still talking about, look, we're having this webinar. If you haven't registered yet, go register. If you have registered already, great. You'll be getting your link to hop on, blah, blah, blah. So the answer is yes. would you call a webinar a free online class to the general population? I would tend to shy away from class only because I don't think that it has positive connotations for most people. You know, I think of class, I think of sitting in a classroom, I think of school, I think of having a notebook, I think of work, I think of it being tiring, I think of being bored. And so I would shy away from calling it a class. You know, and I would replace it with something that doesn't come with, you know, preconceived biases. Any recommendation for Evergreen webinar software? Well, the webinar software, the Evergreen webinar software that we've used for a long time is Mike's Evergreen business system, but we're in the process of testing a different system out from Justin Burns, and so we haven't done a webinar with them yet, but it looks really promising, and we're in the process of setting up a test with them, and so I'll certainly keep you posted there. So Todd, can you do a paid webinar which gives a discount to your product if they attend the webinar, and that way you get paid for doing the video similar to what you've done today? Sure. If I understand what you're saying, Gail, absolutely. So you do a paid webinar. Let's say the webinar is $100 to attend. Is, you know, $97 like today's training, and excuse me, and then let's say you offer a $297 product, then yeah, you can offer a discount. And the way I would do it is I would use the verbiage like, and I'll take the $97 that you paid for this training and I'll apply it, you know, to the $297, bringing it all the way down to just one payment of $200. And so, yeah, the answer is absolutely. In fact, that's, you know, as a quick aside, you know, there's, man, without getting, because this is, you know, I don't want to go beyond this intensification process stuff, but so there's a couple of really slick ways to do stuff like that. Number one, you could, of course, you could do the same thing, Gail, and this goes for everybody. You could do the same thing with a front-end product. And so if you got a front-end product, and if you've designed the front-end product really well, it seeds the back-end product, meaning it gets people prepared and excited to learn more about the back-end product, right? It gets them ready to learn more about the back-end product. Well, so part of the offer, one of the things that you can certainly test is applying what it is that they paid for the front-end offer to get into the back-end. And when done right, what you do is, let me see how I can explain this, is you sell them on the full price of the back end. You sell them on, so when you're talking about the back end, when you're laying out all of the, you know, the features that they get, and you're coming down, you know, like it's kind of like you would say, let's say your front end was, you know, was $49, right? And now you're gonna, you know, let's just say for mathematical purposes, let's do this. Just to keep things simple for me. Let's say the front end was $100, and let's say then the back end offer that you were going to make was $300. So hypothetically, right, you sell this $100 front end, you put them in, you give them access to the product, maybe inside, you know, where they get the product, maybe it's a video or 2 videos or something like that. There's the opportunity for them to register for a special webinar. On that webinar, you make them an offer for the $300 product, and so you're listing out everything that they get, blah blah blah, and then what you say is, you know, it's $300, right? It's just $300 today, and then you would go into your guarantee, you would go into your bonuses, right? And then you would go back to the 300, and then you would apply the discount. And so what you want to do is you want to sell them on the highest price point before you discount. You know, so like if you are, you know, it's kind of like this. It's like, and let me give credit where credit's due. This also came from the guys at Speaking Empire. This idea that, and this is really, really slick. this idea that, so let's say in your $300 back end offer, they get this component and this component and this component, and that comes to a total value of, of $200. But plus they also get this component and this component and this component, and all these components are worth another $300, bringing everything to a value of $500. Plus they get this, this, and this, bringing everything to a total value of 900. Now let's say that you're only going to sell this thing for $199. Well, before you drop it down to $199, you want to take a moment in here to sell them on the value of getting this training at $900, right? And so this is where we would do the, right? Look, at $900, even if this program did 75% as well for you, frankly, even if it did 50% as well for you, this thing would still be bringing you XYZ, or would still do XYZ for you, right? And so what we're doing is we're taking this number and we are establishing that even if this program does half or does a fraction as well at this price point, it would still be worth it. And what this does is this gets them to consider this price point, to contemplate, can I do it? Would I do it at this price point? And then what we do is that's when we give the discount, and we give a reason for the discount, right? But the good news is today I'm not even going to ask you to invest $900 because I want testimonials, or because I'm running a contest, or because I want your feedback, or because this is brand new. I'm going to give you a discount today, and so you're not going to pay $900. You're not even going to pay $700. In fact, you're not even going to pay $500. Today you can get everything that I shared with you. This, and this, and this bonus, and this bonus, and this bonus for just one payment of $99, or two payments of $100 or whatever, and you get the money back guarantee, which says XYZ, right? And that's how you would do it. So hopefully that helps you. So Pete asked, did you start the recording? I certainly hope so. Adam says, great content, Todd. Thank you, dude. Okay, so Bart asks, if the audience knows it's not live, is there a process to use scarcity for the close which seems authentic? So great question. First of all, don't ever say that it's live if it's not live, right? So at Strategic Profits, we never said that it was live when it was evergreen, because that's a lie, right? And look, from an integrity perspective, you either don't lie or you do. To me, there's no such thing as somebody who sometimes lies. You either lie or you don't, right? And so the reality is that, that hopefully every one of you on here is authentic and is honest. And so you don't ever say that it's live. You see, the thing is, with an evergreen event-driven marketing, with an EEDM, with an evergreen webinar, you don't have to say that it's live. The power is not in that it's live. The power is in that it is an event, right? That's the power. The power is that it's happening on a certain day at a certain time, not that it's live. They have to be there at that certain time on that certain day. That's the power, not that it is live. And so we never say that that it's live. And so there's lots of different ways that you can use scarcity for the close, even if it's not live. For example, look, when you make a one-time offer to somebody after they've purchased a product, let's say a one-click upsell, and it's a one-time offer that they'll never see again, there's scarcity in that. Right? In other words, it's now or never. There's urgency, there's scarcity, and that has nothing to do with it being live. And so there's a lot of different ways to build in scarcity. The key is when you're building in scarcity and urgency that you have a real reason. Don't lie. Don't make up some nonsense. I'll tell you that the best marketers build the urgency for their product around around what the product does, around the pain that the product alleviates and the benefits that the product gives. not around some bogus scarcity play like I only have 50 copies or I'm shutting down the cart or something like that. Unless, of course, you're shutting down the cart for a reason because, you truly don't want any, and you are going to shut down the cart. But so the power in terms of creating urgency comes in reminding people of what it is that they stand to gain and what it is that they will continue to experience if they don't take advantage of your offer. Right? So in other words, and this is one of the things that you don't see all that many people do anymore, but it was for the direct response marketers, it was foundational that around the offer, during the offer, usually right before the call to action, they would remind people of where they were at right now. They would remind people of their pain, of their problem, and they would remind people of the ramifications of not taking action, of not taking advantage of the offer, right? And so they're reminding them of where they're at and their pain. That's where the urgency came from. When you've got it's just like when you've got companies like Agora. I'm fortunate in that I get to spend time with Michael Masterson, Mark Ford. They don't use these bogus, we only have, we're only accepting 15 more newsletter subscribers today or whatever. No, they're selling you on the urgency of the offer is the reaping of benefits of what it is that they're going to give you, right? And of course, missing out on the opportunity to benefit from the information that they have. And so hopefully that answers your question. Have you seen any success selling a free online class with good content for $7? So a free online class, it wouldn't be free if you were selling it for $7. Then pitching a $97 product at the end. What you're talking about, the answer is yes, because what you're talking about is done all the time. And what you're talking about is not a free online class, but you're talking about basically selling an online training program for $7, and then at the end of that pitching something at $97. Well, yeah, I mean, that's done all the time. That was done very recently by Ryan Dice and Frank Kern. We've done that before where we've done paid trainings, given stellar content, and then at the end, taken a little bit of time to make an offer. Look, when the offer is completely congruent with the content, it doesn't feel intrusive. It's not like you're doing anything wrong. If I made an offer right now that said, for X number of dollars, you could have me and my team build out your entire intensification process for you, that wouldn't seem intrusive. I guarantee we could sell a bunch of those if I wanted to, right? So the point is that as long as it's congruent, even if it's a paid training, you can still make the offer. And the reality is, and this goes, again, we're definitely going beyond the scope of the intensification process, if you will. But the reality is that every product should be engineered to prepare customers for the next product, always. So there's no such thing as, and this is something that I talked about, I think it was in last month's Marketing Funnels Uncensored letter. And if you're not a subscriber, you really should go over to the marketingfunnelautomation.com blog, and there's an image down the sidebar where you can click and get information on Marketing Funnels Uncensored, where I talk about that one of the big mistakes that novice marketers make is separating in their mind the difference between marketing and product creation. They go from, when they're doing a product, they're solely in product creation mode, and when they're doing marketing, they're solely in marketing mode. Well, the reality is that they both fall under the heading of marketing, because products are part of your marketing funnel. The delivery of a product, you're not only delivering information and delivering on the promise of the product, but you're also preparing prospects and customers for the next product, right? And so even in something like this, I could either make an offer if I want, and I have nothing to sell. That's not the point of this training, nor will I for this. So let's say that I could make an offer at the end here for, again, for me to build out an intensification process for you. Or what I could do is do a follow-up where for the people that, paid for this training and attended, I could send out a direct mail piece, or I could have a VSL, or I could have a long form sales letter that you got access to the next day, or that was on the replay page that sold you on that. That would be totally fine. And so just because it's paid doesn't mean that you can't set up the sale for something else. Remember, selling is not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when you're conning people, or when you don't believe in your product, or when you don't believe that your product is in the best interest of your customers. If you believe that your product is in their best interest, if you believe that you're delivering the goods and you're equipping people for massive benefits and massive payoffs and helping people get out of pain, well, then shame on you if you're not offering it every chance you get, right? It's the issue that people have when it comes to selling, even within products, or making offers within products, is, I believe, that they just don't believe in what it is that they're selling fully, and therefore they're uncomfortable offering it. And me personally, I don't. I put my heart and soul into every training that I do, and so for me, I know that it's in everybody's best interest. But okay, so let me see. Next question is, what's better for you, an evergreen video launch or an evergreen launch of a webinar with your intensification process videos? So there, I really can't answer that, because every niche, every marketplace is different. Some markets have never experienced a launch before. Some markets are oversaturated with launches. So I really can't answer that, but I will tell you that it's not an either or proposition. In other words, there is an opportunity to have within a launch a webinar where you have an intensification process, right? Anytime you have somebody registering for an event and you have a time delay in between the event, the registration and the event, you should have an intensification process, right? And so you might have to adjust it. It might not be 3 days or 2 days. You might have to adjust the intensification process. But every time you have somebody register for something and there's a delay, you should have an intensification process. The other thing is that the question really begs, what is the difference between an evergreen video launch and an evergreen launch of a webinar? They're both launches. They're just using different tactics, right? One could be several different videos. It all falls under the same heading. The only difference is the tactics that are at play there. So Matt says, okay, great. Yep. Yeah. Hey, Todd, hear you. Great. Cool. Hi. Thanks. You're very welcome. And so, okay. So, Matt asks, my prospects are high-level decision makers in law firms. Often they don't put their direct number on the webinar form. They put the company's switch number. How does this work in that instance? Because it seems like this would bounce at the gatekeeper. So if, Matt, you're dealing with, I think that you're asking about voice broadcast and SMS. If that's the case, I just take those out. If the reality is that they're going to enter, now what I would try to do, the reality is, look, if you feel that it is getting bounced by a gatekeeper, then I would just take it out of the sequence. But the reality is that I would ask them for their private mobile number for a reminder, and I would let them know. I would cover the objection, the concern that they won't receive a phone call from any salesperson or any unsolicited phone call, that their number will only be used for reminder purposes. And so this way you increase the likelihood of them giving their own mobile number so that they remember. But again, if that's just not feasible because you're dealing with high-level attorneys, then just dump it out of the intensification process. Any other questions? That looks like that is the last question in here. Like I said, I'm going to try to get up I'm going to try to have the team, we'll have the replay available for you within the next 24 hours. On that page, we're going to have the download for the blueprint, the one-page PDF blueprint. You'll also get, I'll also make sure that we put the slides up there for you. Also, a link to download the EEDM report, the original report from Strategic. And I'll make a note to put a PDF version of that book, The First 100 Million, so that you can see the difference in names and how it impacts response. And so, excellent. Pete, you're very welcome. Sharon, you're very welcome. Where will be, so Glenn is asking, where will it be available at? So you'll get a link. You'll get an email within the next 24 hours with a link to probably a password protected page, and you'll get the link and all the other goodies there as well. Thanks. You're welcome. Ishan, you're welcome. Mar, very cool. Welcome, man. So I love your deep knowledge of NLP. Refreshing. Thank you. It's actually, I appreciate that, Bart. But it's actually not very deep. It's just really understanding, I look at the things that are really powerful in terms of copy, like presuppositions. And those are the things, presuppositions. I only know very little about NLP, to be real with you, and presuppositions are the one thing that is kind of a go-to for me, where presuppositions and using implicit communication, because when you're able to imply something rather than explicitly say it, like I said a couple times already, it is incredibly powerful because of the fact that the prospect takes ownership of it. And so Milton Erickson would be proud. Cool. I appreciate that. It's cool, Glenn. Glad you felt that it was worth. Cool. You're welcome, Gail. Cool. Awesome, gang. And so there you have it. I really appreciate you guys coming on for this training. Super pumped about this for you. I would love to get some updates from you on some of the success stories that I know that you guys are going to have using this. Certainly, if you have any questions specific to the intensification process, feel free to send them in to info@marketingfunnelautomation.com. They'll get forwarded to me and I'll answer them, because I want to make sure that you're able to put this into action, utilize this, get crazy results, and then send me a wild testimonial about your crazy results. And so with that being said, take care, everybody. Have a great day. Todd Brown, over and out.